shifting the narrative with increased representation in the arts and sports. I'm Shruti Mukund, the Director of Community Engagement here at Olney Theatre, and community engagement here engages the community that surrounds us, specifically those that haven't historically felt represented or bound here at Olney. Using our guiding principles for community engagement, outreach, participation, creativity, gathering, and civic duty, we hope to have more and more people choosing us as their cultural home. The tradition of behind the scenes events began to give our patrons and those in the community an opportunity to contextualize the shows as we produce them. We want you to understand why we picked the play over and beyond the brilliant art history, while highlighting themes that resonate with us in the surrounding communities. Today, we're presenting this in conjunction with Mosaic Theatre and their presentation of the Till trilogy that's going to happen this fall. We have some of their brochures out there, so please make sure to pick one as we leave. Who we see on stage, on screen, on the field, or the court makes a political statement whether we want it or not. Creating the narrative of how we see this story, our country, and ourselves is really important. National Players Tour 73, with a all-black ensemble in Much Ado About Nothing, helps re-envision who can or should play Shakespeare. Mosaic Theatre's fifth trilogy is using theater to continue the conversation begun by Paul Robeson, Jackie Robinson, Ali Berry, or Venus and Serena Williams. So today, we want to talk about representation of people of color in the arts and sports, particularly where we are now in shifting that narrative towards accessibility and inclusivity, along with our special guest here today, Psalmayene 24, and referred to as Sam, and Yolanda, Stanislaus, Ariel, Elizabeth Davis. Please welcome my guests. So for the purpose of today's conversation, we've kept the direction more in terms of each of their experiences being who they are, getting out in this world. Because as you can all imagine, we can take this conversation in many, many directions. We can take it into straight facts and data and statistics that you can easily pull up on Google and find out about. Really, representation does matter. It has changed things. I mean, how many of you watched Bridgerton and actually reimagined the Regency era, right? And I mean, I was excited as much as I had my own opinions of how Kate Sharma should have or should have been on Bridgerton. I was so glad that they had a brown woman in there. So like, I think like having a South Asian Marvel hero was really empowering to my kids, because to them they'd only seen white men play all these Marvel heroes, and so it was really awesome. My daughter watched all of it, so we got Disney Plus just for that. But things like that is so empowering and important when you are. It's not even that you think you're the other, but people do see you as the other, right? And so today I was like, I actually had to go to another event after, but I was like, you know what? I'm already the other. I'm still going to wear my starting show up there today. So sometimes you just gotta do it. So that's why we wanted to bring you these personal stories and transformative stories that all of us won't be able to just pull off Google and have a discussion about it. And so Sam, I will start with you. You've been a part of the DC theater tapestry for a while now. And with your work at Mosaic, it's kind of embedded in the 8th Street community as well as the extended DC community. So who were your role models and who inspired you to get into the theater?
Right. Well, I'll say your dishonor is beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
But as chance would have it, Yolanda's brother was one of my teachers in junior high school.
Oh my God!
And he is a man who inspires inspired me. Actually, two of her brothers worked there, and we did a talent show. And that talent show was sort of one of the sparks that really ignited my hunger for performance and for theater. So, I mean, this is how things work and how small the world is. Her sisters actually fell on good times too. Yeah, so. And I'm yeah, so, I mean, it's right, yes. But aside from key educators, like Yolanda's brother, there are certainly mentors that I had in town, that I had and have in town, like Jennifer Nelson, who's the Olney playwright and director and actress. Also, Rebecca Rice, Reverend Soul, was also a DC-based playwright and director and actress who was also important in terms of my love for theater. But then I also had mentors who I never met, like August Wilson, who I consider sort of a spiritual mentor who wrote Fences. His commitment to illuminating the Black experience in really rich and deep ways inspires me. And so Dr. Sean Gay, who is the sister of Tifa Baeza, who wrote the Till trilogy, is also sort of one of my artistic ancestors. And in terms of her groundbreaking play, The Color Girls, Suicide, When I Was Young, the form of that play really inspired me in terms of approaching theater in a way that you hadn't necessarily seen. I consider Enzo Laki sort of a low-level hip-hop theater artist, so she was like doing hip-hop theater before it was such thing as hip-hop theater. She also had a good influence on me. So those are some people who definitely an inspiration.
So actually, Yolanda and Sam reconnected here today, and they discovered all their concentric quads. So I'm excited about happy birthday. So Yolanda, Sandy Spring is a treasure trove of local history in changing times, just down the street, and we feel so happy that we're so close to that. But in your work as an educator and volunteer at the Sandy Spring Slave Museum and African Art Gallery, what have been the most powerful learning and teaching moments that were elevated through the arts for you?
Well, definitely. Thank you, Sam, for that little intro. So yes, I'm an educator, and I've been an educator for about 29 years. And a big piece of what we're really delving into in Montgomery County Public Schools is your wellness. So I said, what is my wellness really? And I started to volunteer at Sandy Spring Slave Museum and African Art Gallery. And I quickly realized that that was my wellness. It was an opportunity for me to merge history and the impact of the ancestors on performance. With the Sandy Spring Slave Museum, we have various events in which we're continuously thinking about how do we share the storytelling. And I think about that, and I think about the arts. When I think about gospel, where did that originate? It originated from our enslaved people sharing a story in song and response. So with the museum, we're always thinking about ways to incorporate and work with the local schools and the administrators. We recently had our superintendent and her entire team come and just to hear more about the history of Sandy Spring, which was amazing, but also think about how can we incorporate the work that's done there, the impact of enslaved people, and their impact on the performing arts. We think about the music, we think about the acting and the drama. We think about songs and we think about instruments. So when our students come, this is a museum where students get to touch, they get to really look at the instruments and hear stories about young children that were their age hundreds of years ago and how they interfaced with these instruments, what they sound like, what they look like, how they felt. So this is a way to bring our history and marry that history with our love of education, but really thinking about ways in which our history have impacted the arts and performance over time. Just last week, maybe two weeks ago, we had our second annual Afro-Latino Caribbean Day. Beautiful. Just an opportunity for dancers to come and singers and storytellers and flautists. And it was just an incredible event. And we try to do that as much as possible to welcome our community so that they can really live the experience of of individuals who have contributed so much, but at times are overlooked.
Thank you, Yolanda. Actually, for me, the most powerful thing I saw and experienced at the museum were the family trees. If you haven't been out there, I highly recommend going. It's like a very homely museum. It's not one of those museums that you feel like intimidated. You just want to know everything. So there's a whole room with family trees, and I think that's what my daughter also took away, because she was like, wow, we can actually go all the way back and live here, like in this area. Like, it's kind of unfathomable that you can, especially being immigrants. She's seen the village my great grandfather came from, but I don't think we have something as that tool of having that visually represented and having that story to tell. And I guess you guys are the modern day griots.
Can I add to that? So both of the co-directors, Dr. Troy Body and Ms. Sandy Williams, incredible people, and I learn from them every time I go. They are descendants of the enslaved people who were freed and stayed on that land. And to have them as the co-directors, along with so many other volunteers and other board members whose family, when I go, I feel like, am I a part of the family yet? Can I be a cousin? Maybe I'm a cousin. But they tell such wonderful stories of the contributions just of their family alone. And I remember, going through my training and going into that room and saying, is this really like your brownie costume from when? But they have a rich, they really are connected and committed because that's their family. It's beautiful.
You're definitely a cousin, because I'm half cousin also. Yeah, and I think the value of all the volunteers being educators helps, because then you get to tell these stories and keep personal memories as actually learning knowledge. And I think that's what the beauty of that is. So, Ariel. So I think talking about things of cool things, the scale of cool things, I think the coolest thing Ariel has done is that she was on stage with Lizzo on live. So, how cool was that? But also in other life, because she's a multi-potentiate like everyone else on the stage, she and Bernice Floyd founded the Arts Administrators of Color, which was the first time there was actually a professional organization that Arts Administrators of Color would come together and have conversations and learn from each other and learn how it is to kind of navigate Eurocentric organizations and white spaces, and how we all come with different cultural backgrounds, and how we get to translate that and have like a group that we could talk to. And it was amazing. And in the pandemic, I think it just blew up. Originally it was like DC based, and now we have how many thousand members? We have 50,000 on Facebook, and they're all over the world. There's information that I get to read on that I don't get to read anywhere else. And I'm really glad I can be a part of that. But then she also is also an educator and has worked with organizations that actually help young musicians, like the Louis Foundation, and now she's with the Baltimore Youth Music Children's Organization. So can you share some stories with us about how transformative or like how music has impacted lives of youth of color?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that intro. Question. For me,
It's not working.
Thank you. Hello, hello. Okay, good. Sorry about that. Thank you. I consider myself really lucky because I grew up in a community right outside of Detroit, Michigan, with a teacher by the name of Damien Crutcher, who was also a French horn player. I went to Howard, full ride scholarship, learned about people like Julius Watkins and so many others that are a part of my ancestral line. I've been able to develop a relationship with a gentleman by the name of Bob Watt, who's the first French horn player in a symphony orchestra, and he's shared with me so many stories. And ultimately for me, like that's the backbone around everything that I do. It's this thing of growing up, I never saw anyone. I mean, how many of y'all have seen a Black French horn player somewhere? No one in the room has, right? And so even that gig with Lizzo that you mentioned, and thank you for mentioning that, Lizzo purposefully and very intentionally curated a group of Black women playing every instrument you can think of for the Grammy stage, and like had a moment tearfully, during rehearsals, just saying how for her as a father, she had never seen that, right? And how important that was. And so, I've come to meet and know people that have not had that privilege. And as I've grown older, I'm in my mid-30s now, right? I've seen how it can be detrimental to not have that kind of circle around you, to not have that connection to ancestral lineage, to not have strong mentors and representation, in your life, showing you how you really want to live and how you really want to express yourself, right? I can't wait to visit the museum, honestly. It's incredible that, that even exists. I wish, right? And that thing that you spoke of around August Wilson being an ancestor of us. I got a chance to check out this incredible cast yesterday for the first half of Fences. And the entire time I was just thinking to myself, when was this written? When was this written? Because there are so many things that affect me now, that affect my brothers now, that affect so many, And so I think ultimately, for me in the work that I do, and this is why AAC began, it's to pay homage to those ancestors, to pay homage to those people that have continued to extend knowledge in really important ways. People that we don't get a chance to hear about and learn about as much as we should for so many reasons. In this, and I know this is such a buzzy word, everyone's saying it on social media, but in this capitalism, entrenched society where people aren't getting the money in order to really express themselves or do the things and the projects that they want to. Quanice and I volunteered so many hours and so much time just to get this organization together so that we could begin to build amongst one another. And I have to say, it wasn't let me correct myself, it wasn't a thing where we began to build the thing. It was the thing where we wanted to organize the energy that already existed, because again, there are just so many people that have been doing such incredible work, and at the end of the day, I hope that we can continue to support that, get the word out, to extend the stories that, will continue to affect ourselves in our everyday lives, so, yeah.
Thank you, Ariel. Talking about how you felt Fences, felt really that resonated with you and that felt relevant. Sam, this is the question for you. Of all the things that you've written or acted or directed, which of that do you think has been the most impactful that you've seen that has changed the narrative?
Yeah, it's difficult to quantify.
Microphone, your mic.
Wow.
Thank you.
It's difficult to quantify impact because sometimes the people who you'll impact the most, you will never see them. It might be someone who's in the last row and who might not even see the entire show, but something in the show resonated with them. However, a play that I directed about 6 years ago called Word Becomes Flesh, written by Mark Bamuthi Joseph. This was produced over at the Theater Alliance. And this play was a play where 5 Black men performed letters to their unborn son, preparing their son for coming into the world as a Black male, telling stories about their experiences and their trials and tribulations and their triumphs and, their journeys with love and things like that. I'd say that play for me was one of the most impactful because it really showed a panoramic view of what it means to be a Black man. Oftentimes in theater, we see so many stereotypes and so many sort of reduced caricatures of Black men that to see 5 Black men, 5 different, fully fleshed out human beings on stage was something that I felt really proud of, and I thought we really were able to achieve well. I also do work for young audiences, so those plays, I think I'm proudest of those as well because of the audience, because most of the time, a lot of the time, these young people are seeing theater for the very first time. So you're shaping what their perception is of the art form, like in an extremely powerful way. So those 2 things I'd say have the most impact, I think.
Thank you, Tom. So Yolanda,
Pass the mic.
So in your work as an educator, so what have been the special tools or like magic dust that you use to help empower students of color?
So just listening to both of you and thinking about the work that I've done, I served as a principal at an elementary school, a middle school, and now in central office. But in my work at the middle school level in particular, and that's our conversation earlier today. When I think about that pipeline work that you brought up, Ariel, like how do we ensure that these young people of color are on the stage with Lizzo in the future, right? Or the future Lizzo. It's all about access and opportunity. So as an educator, my primary role as a principal was to ensure that there's high quality teaching and learning for all students, and all students were being treated in a respectful way and able to be their absolute best selves, right? But in doing that, it's so very important that you look at the structures that you have in place in schools. Many times schools can be very technical and quite robotic, and at times missed opportunities for students regarding their voice in dance, their voice in drama, their voice in. So I remember when I was a principal at a middle school, and I have an affinity toward dance and drama and all of that. And I was working with my counselors, and it said, what might that look like if one of our electives is a dance elective? And we don't have this. Maybe we can do maybe an after school. I said, no, what about an elective where it's right in the body of the master schedule? So it was all about really looking at the talents of the adults that I had in my school, and then hearing from our students. So I didn't just create a dance class because I thought it was cool and great, and I have an affinity toward it. I heard from my students. So student voice is so very important. Very often when I do conferences in different parts of the country, my go-to or my entry point with other educators is, are you elevating the voices of the students in your school? Are you allowing them to be full facilitators in their own growth and development? And so as a principal, it was very important to elevate their voices and hear, what do you want, right? What does that look like? If you want it after school, we'll do that after school. And we would like to do that instead of X. Can we do that? So just allowing students to have a voice in their own learning, a voice in their work. I know a young student, and she's a teenager now, but when she was in elementary school, I mentioned I was an elementary school principal, and when she was in elementary school, she was, there were concerns, right? The educators, well, she's not really talking in class, or, her friend group is really small, how can we open that up a bit? And, spoke with mom, and mom really said, okay, what might that look like? And I said, get her involved in something. Go to an art class, a dance class or something. And so mom put her in dance. When I tell you that this young woman is incredible, it blows my mind. So I've gone to see performances, and I see her on stage, and I look and I say, is this the same young woman, the young girl that I've known or knew when she was 7, 8 and didn't interface and barely gave eye contact? But now she's a whole amazing, well-rounded young person who found her niche in dance, right? And that would not have happened if I didn't listen to my staff, or I didn't give voice to my staff when they were saying there's some things here, let's do something different. So I think voice is important. I think it's important to think about how do we continue that pipeline, and how, as educators and leaders of schools and school systems, how do we break down those barriers, right? That very often we put up because we think that's what we need to do to move students through this process of education without really listening.
Thank you, Yolanda. Actually, you were talking about the student who came alive at dance. So my sister and I run an Indian dance school, and there was this girl who came. In preschool, she was very shy, she was very inhibited, and the teachers asked a word and to describe the word sway, and she just swayed. She didn't use her words. And so the teacher told the mom, you should do something, take her to a dance class or something to help her get out of her shell. And she ended up with us, and you could see each year how she blossomed, and the dance helped her kind of develop this, self-esteem, confidence to be on stage, because she was this different persona on stage, but then started impacting her regular life. And so she's written kids book that says She Sways, and it's a little like page flip book, and it's all about her learning indie dance and getting chances to go on live TV. She actually also does Bollywood dance now. She's in Atlanta, but she works with the FBA. But it's this part of her that's kind of empowered her to be everything else she could be in her life. So, yeah. It should be pretty obvious by now that I'm a big believer that the arts changed so what. That's not up for discussion now. Ariel. So you mentioned a little bit about how the arts administration of color, how it changed and morphed, and how it's helped so many of us, including me. Can you talk a little bit about your work with the Lewis Foundation and how the Baltimore are working, about all the what the foundation does and how your work has helped change so many kids' lives and empower them through music?
I really appreciate that. Those were kind words. I mean, it's interesting because I also have a story about a young person who like blossomed through the arts. And honestly, it's part of what had helped shape, my drive to get into this foundation's work. It's a young lady who had a hard time with literacy, and we had intro to music book, and unfortunately she wasn't able to read the titles, but every time she picked up the clarinet, she had perfect pitch, could literally, play back anything that anyone else played, and didn't realize that she had that gift. This is something, look, I played the horn for 20 years and could never develop that skill set, so that thing about the arts, I just couldn't agree more. It's so important to provide that opportunity, that access, so that our young people can see themselves in new and important ways. With the Lewis Prize for Music, this is an organization that I worked with for a couple of years, and essentially philanthropists who had been giving a lot of money to orchestras for quite some time, by the name of Daniel Lewis, made the decision to stop. He made that decision to stop because he would ask time over time for proof around community impact. He was from Cincinnati and grew up with the orchestra, loved Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. I'm also a big fan, but was becoming more and more disenchanted with how much money was going in the direction of orchestras and how much a lot of orchestras were saying they were doing this community impact work, but then he'd go into communities and see no impact happening. And so he decided to independently create this fund. At the time I was with them, it was $20 million we redistributed to nonprofit organizations. The leader of that initiative, Luke Smith, made the very intentional decision to hire all women of color to help provide the organization around how that money would be redistributed, and it continues to exist today. So definitely spread the word, let folks know. This is an organization that I think is doing really, really important work. With the Baltimore Children and Youth Fund, I'll try to keep it brief, but this organization has my heart. I started working with them just recently, but the history and the story behind it is incredible. So shortly after the killing of Freddie Gray in Baltimore, as we all know, there were lots of uprisings, right, and social calls around injustice in Baltimore. And so a lot of this was documented in an HBO documentary actually called Baltimore Rising, which I recommend people check out. One of the organizations there is an organization called Leaders of the Beautiful Struggle. And for them, it's all around Pan-Africanism and Black empowerment, unapologetically. And after this documentary aired and et cetera, and really in the midst of it, they began lobbying efforts with local government and were successfully able to advocate for a percentage of property tax funds to go towards this fund for nonprofits in Baltimore. So just to cut it all the way down, this is $12 million that's being redistributed to nonprofit organizations in Baltimore, particularly those that have been founded and led by people in Baltimore, which is a predominantly Black city. Surprise, surprise. And so what I'm just so excited about is the foundation of this is led by the ancestral lines and history and knowledge shared by folks like Marcus Garvey, unapologetically, and Malcolm X, unapologetically. It's the thing of these are imperfect people like we all are, right? But each of them made it very clear that sovereignty was important, that the thing of we can and should and must do things for our people, our culture, our histories, our stories, wherever possible. And so honestly, I am beyond thrilled to continue to work with them, having been taught at Howard by people like Greg Carr, who I definitely encourage folks look into, Saiz Kamaluddin, who told me about Julius Watkins, who I'd never heard of beforehand, incredible horn player, and so many others. So yeah, that's really what I'm up to nowadays.
Thank you, Ariel. So, I mean, we can talk all night. There's so much to still learn, share, but before we open up the questions to the audience, I wanted to ask all of you this question. So, what do you think needs to be done to further like shift this narrative even more, like about othering, belonging, and like how can we do this more with the arts?
Yeah, I think the arts has a challenge because a lot of the attention is focused on the performers on stage. And that is only one aspect of the ecosystem of the arts. So, I mean, a lot of people who do theater, they start out as actors because that's the first thing that you see. You don't necessarily see the writer. You don't necessarily see you work with the director, but that's not really pushed out there. When we talk about professional theaters like nonprofit theaters and regional theaters, I mean, there's artistic directors, managing directors, boards, administrators, I mean, all costume designers, lighting designers. So really letting young people know that there are so many things that you can do. So exposing them to that, giving them access to that, really creating, policies, more policies that diversify all aspects of the arts. So I think that's what's needed, and really making being an artistic director or managing director of a theater as sexy as being an actor. I think that's what we need to do.
Alrighty. So as an educator, I'm always thinking about representation in curriculum, and I think about how amazing would that be if pure and true representation regarding the impact of people of color in the arts woven in the curriculum. I also think about, we often hear, oh, this is a magnet program within the body of this school, and highly sought after and very hard to get into, whatever that may be, and not just, I'm talking about across different school systems. What might that look like if those opportunities are given to all students in all schools, and it doesn't matter, what the school is or where it's located or what it looks like, right? That all students have that opportunity that so many try for. I think about those specialized high schools that we do have in the state, and we can only take 28 dancers this year. Wow, we just saw 200 in the auditorium trying to audition. So how can we ensure that those 175 students or whatever that did not get accepted into this elite program don't feel dejected, don't feel like, okay, well, obviously they didn't see something in me, so I'll just not do. So how can we make sure that we don't send those messages out to children so that they can stay engaged in what they love? We're not saying that everyone is going to, but maybe I would be Misty Copeland. That didn't quite work out for me. But I still love dance, and I still love going to see it, and I still at times take class. But if we can continue to just infuse that for all students and provide them with opportunity, that would be incredible.
Yeah. Did anyone see the Serena Williams interview after her match win, where the interviewer said something to the effect of, "Serena, are you surprised by how you performed today?" And she said, "What?" I want that level of confidence for like all of our young people. Like I want everyone to carry that energy of, "What? Do you not see how amazing I am?" Like, that's really all.
I agree. Actually, it's really interesting that both of you, the points that you both brought up is sort of what we are also grappling here at Olney with. Like, I mean, my position came out of like the whole soul searching the organization did, and to fulfill our anti-racist mission. My position was created a year ago, and but since then, there's this like the idea is to fulfill like at least have 35%, of people of color on staff, but there's no pipeline, not enough pipeline for it to happen just now. So I think starting young and bringing up that, growing that is what is also important, right? And like you said, making our admin job as sexy or as, pay enough that you want to do it. I mean, you don't, because nonprofit arts is not sexy. It is it only runs on passion, and that's what fuels you going forward. But each generation is pushing back and saying, that's lovely. Yes, I have a passion, but do I want to make this my career? And how do we continue this to be something that it can be their career too? Like it's like, I don't have a trust fund, but I want to do this, right? So how are we changing those things? Like, making sure we have enough resources to support people who want to get into these kind of areas. But that's the career part of it. But there's also the other conversation where things like the film trilogy or taking fences across the country so it continues these conversations that are important for society to have. And what better way to have it than have this play say before somebody else actually comes on this. Yes, we need representation. No, you watch the thing and you're like, right? And those kind of things, I feel more and more the funding for it, people, the one of it. I mean, now that, for all its faults of, casting or whatever, or, whether it was colorblind, color conscious casting, whether it was Hamilton or whether it was Bridgerton, like there's so many ways to look at it, but at the same time, it did change suddenly how people see who are on stage, or like the Marvel with having different, the Salvation Girl at it, or the Disney princesses looking different. Like everything, each time there's one thing that changes, there's something that moves in people's minds, and it's like, oh, maybe I can be this people, right? And I think that's sort of what we are wishing for, and everybody just say, huh? Like, I don't say, no, So now I open it up to all of you if you have any questions. Or our wonderful panelists here.
I have a question down here. Let me stand up. I'm not on the ground. Hello, I'm Sultana. It's nice to meet you. I'm an apprentice here. Today is my last day, actually. And thank you very much. And my question was, like, what recommendations do you have for like a young person of color like me who is in the arts and is kind of overwhelmed by the predominant whiteness of it all? And like, how do you recommend we keep going, like for, the people who are coming up behind us, the people who are, who paved the way for us? Like, how do you recommend we like work in this world that we are in?
I'll start. Find your tribe, and if you don't see your tribe, create your tribe. Go out and make your tribe, because it's important to have a community, because that's where some of your being grounded will come from. I mean, for a lot of us, it starts in the home. It starts with your family. Your family is your first tribe, and that's where like your idea of yourself starts to originate. But aside from that, it's like finding those like-minded people. Could be people of color, could not be. Just find your folk and then start creating too. Don't wait until you're part of an institution to start making things. You can make things in your living room, in your bedroom, and then you can like literally do a reading if you're a playwright in your living room. Like, I'm a big fan of those types of readings and activities. So really, if you're not already connected to a community, make one and then start making things.
Yeah, I'll chime in and say yes. I couldn't agree more. I used to work at the Kennedy Center, and that is a predominantly white institution. Particularly when I started, I was the only person of color on the team of 7 people. And if it wasn't for the community that was growing and building, including Shruti, like we used to have conversations so many times around Arts Administrators of Color Network, I don't think I could have survived the 4 years that I was there, quite frankly, because there were a lot of the things that we all see and hear about on social media in terms of microaggressions and lack of, attribution towards whatever is being brought in. You know, there are all these things, unfortunately. So yeah, I definitely agree. Find your tribe. And I would also add in to do everything you can to keep yourself whole, because it's easy, and this is an unfortunate position to have to be in, where you have to like find your tribe and do your full-time job. But it's easy to get burned out, you know? I'm still kind of climbing my way out of a lot of burnout. And so, yeah, I would say, you know, keeping in touch with like your core family, friends, you know. I've been kayaking lately, that's been really helpful. Finding, you know, something you'd like to do that, you know, is for you only. And sticking to that, that's also really important.
Thank you.
Not much, but just to continue to share your gifts. You know, you may not have your tribe yet, or your family may be small. I'm not sure. For anyone who's listening, their circumstances are different. But I always say, just continue to have your voice, continue to share your gifts. I think about the work at the museum, and what they've done was create an environment for people like me, who I'm really new to the museum, and I'm excited about what they're doing, but they're open for me to share ideas. So just continue to share. Sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't, but if you don't put it out there, you'll never know.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
When I was in high school, I was kind of intimidated because I wasn't as smart as the other kids. I felt that. And I sort of didn't want to speak up. I was intimidated and humiliated, but at the same time, like teacher said, become inspired, become creative, become self-motivated. And because of that teacher inspiring that in me, I was able to become more creative. I didn't hold myself back because I was Italian. During the time when there was a war and Italians were bad guys. I think that's a lesson we all have.
Thank you, and I think that's true of society. Who's the other, who's belonging kind of changes with time, and like you said, we have to find our inspiration, our tribe, our, ourselves first, and to be able to respond to the world around us. And I'm a true believer. If somebody thinks I'm other, I would be contrarian. I would show up in my whole other self. That's okay. And I never shy away from asking a question or asking for something. This was the first thing I'll say. No, too bad for that, actually. Moving on. But thank you so much for joining us here today to talk about othering and belonging. And I think I can safely say we all belong to the Olney Theatre community and the art community, and we're so glad we have our partnership with us. And we say museum because every time I talk to somebody, I'm learning something new, and I really enjoy that. Thank you so much, Ariel and Sam, for all the work that you're doing. We'll hopefully keep bringing you back and have more conversations. Thank you, everyone.